Tonight on Studio 12, come along as we take you on a garden walking tour in the Highlands, filled with the wonder that only Denver urban gardens can display. And we hear from a local award-winning filmmaker in our next in-depth profile in Humanize Women in the Workforce. Kyle Dyer covers the hottest issues affecting our state in this week's Colorado Inside Out. And we catch up with the band Cheap Perfume at their show at the Bluebird Theater, learn more about their punk music and unique sound. All that and so much more coming up in this episode of Studio 12.
From the 5 Points Media Center in the heart of Denver, Colorado, this is Studio 12.
Hi, I'm Bazi Kanani. If you've ever strolled past a community garden with a Denver Urban Gardens sign out front and wondered what's growing in there and who's behind it, Denver Urban Gardens is inviting you to step inside. All summer long, they're offering free walking tours through some of the city's garden spaces and telling the story behind each one. Take a look.
Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining Denver Urban Gardens on our OG tour. This is one of the best ones. This is our original gardens. This is a very sacred space. It's been here since 1994. People know that they are safe and welcome and included here in this space. I can't even imagine a Denver without Doug and a Denver without these gardens. It's just in the fabric of this city that these spaces are here for everyone to enjoy. Beginning of the year, we were like, how can we get more people involved in like the gardens and just, creating this bigger community? Let's do garden strolls. So this is our second one, so thanks for joining us. We're at the Troy Chavez Memorial Peace Garden here at 38th and Shoshone in North Denver. We're visiting the OGs, our original gardens. So we'll be visiting this Troy Chavez Memorial Peace Garden, and we'll end at Pecos, where it all started. This garden was built in 1994, designed in memory of Troy Chavez, who was killed in gang violence during the summer of violence here in Denver. And so we worked with Ana Chavez, Troy's mother, to really design this space as a sacred space, a safe place for anybody to be in here. This is a place where weapons are put down and we're taking care of the earth here. So it was designed with Aztec art. You can see behind me, Mother Earth is holding its children. Makes me cry. So up front we have a lot of different medicinal herbs for the neighborhood and for anybody to come in and pick and smell and touch and feel. And in the back we'll see a lot of different plots for neighborhoods and residents around this space to grow food for themselves and their families as well. All right, let's head to the next one. Here we are at the El Oasis Garden. And so this was rebuilt just a couple of years ago. The community was a part of the design, the rebuild. A lot of the residents that garden here are feeling much closer to their neighbors, which is, a wonderful benefit for creating a smaller space for the gardeners, but also just to start anew with this space. So you can see it's beautiful. There are things growing. It's really turned into a true oasis here in North Denver. All right, are we ready to head to the next location?
Well, I'm Jeremy Garcia. This is the Shoshone Community Garden. We're part of the DUG, Denver Urban Gardens program. We're in Lower Highlands, which is at the intersection of 33rd and Shoshone. And we've got about 30 gardeners here.
I get to be a part of this community and also share my expertise in managing the space.
Everybody lives in the neighborhood, and it's a great way to build the community and get outdoors and kind of meet your neighbors.
My name is Taylor, and welcome to my plot. I have growing here corn, beans, squash, carrots, lots of different flowers such as dahlias. I have so much.
These are my plots. I grow a lot of peppers and tomatoes. I love to cook, so by mid-August or late July, early August, we're harvesting and get to take everything home and throw it in the pans and, make dinner, so it's awesome.
Come on over. So we're sitting here in the Pecos Community Garden, which is on the north side of Denver. Some people know it as Highlands, but growing up here, we called it the north side. My mom is Marty Roberts.
Every time we water, We set up the 7 hoses.
Marty is the one who was one of the first original people to start Doug via the Pecos Community Garden. And this is one of the original, they call it the OG Doug Garden. It started out as a garden behind the nearby church, St. Patrick's Church. And then they found out, hey, there's actually space a block down that the Archdiocese was willing to sell them that was sitting open. And let's buy it and make a community garden out of it. A bunch of people who had come from Laos, called the Hmong people, was their culture. They had come over and were looking for space to grow their traditional foods.
They got to come to the United States, to Seattle. And from Seattle, they came to Denver. And then they found me.
And so they came and tracked down Marty and said, hey, you have a plot of land. Can we join? And she said, yes. When this garden, the Pecos Community Garden, started, there were about 7 to 8 Hmong families, and within the family, multiple generations. But the sad thing over time is as generations integrated into our society, they lost their desire to garden. We still have 2 or 3 families left, but it's the older generation. But it's definitely not as popular with the younger generation, unfortunately. So now it's trying to figure out how do we get younger people involved and get more younger people gardening. Let's make gardening cool again, I guess. Marty starting this plot was really trying to develop a place for people in the neighborhood to grow their own food and have food access and have fresh food.
Do the right thing, Spike Lee. Do the right thing and protect this as forever garden.
And then with me continuing her legacy, continuing to maintain green space in a ever urbanizing, crowding neighborhood, and trying to maintain a space where people can be in touch with the earth and grow their own food and be curious about nature and learn about the environment and develop friendship with their neighbors and develop community and develop relationships.
Take care of Mother Earth. Okay, you go back.
These free walking tours happen once a month through September in neighborhoods across Metro Denver. To find the next one near you, head over to denverurbangardens.org/events. On Colorado Inside Out, Kyle Dyer and her dynamic lineup of panelists bring to the table real issues that impact Colorado and our lives. Here's Kyle with more from this week's stories making headlines.
Hi, Bazi. One of our regular followers of Colorado Inside Out called into PBS 12 and suggested our panel take up a topic that is grabbing the attention of a lot of people in Colorado. And as Congressman Joe Neguse calls it, it's a 5-alarm fire for public lands preservation. If the federal budget bill passes, it would allow for the sale of 8.3 million acres of BLM land in Colorado and the selling off of 16 million acres of Colorado land managed by the Forest Service, with one of the ideas being there would be more space to build more housing. Here's a listen to our conversation. This next topic was recommended by a viewer named Barbara, and she's not the only Coloradan who's thinking about where this is going to play out. 14 million acres of federal public land in Colorado could be put up for sale if the budget bill passes as is. Adam, we're talking about hiking trails, wildlife habitat, areas that butt up to waterways and ski resorts. It's a lot in this western U.S., but a lot in Colorado.
Yeah, we're learning more and more that the OBBB it's got everything in it. It's a little bit of a Christmas tree. So tucked in are these different provisions. One of these causing a lot of concern from Westerners because we are talking about, Vail and Copper Mountain are both on national forest land. You have lunch loops near Grand Junction, Big Thompson Canyon, Hartman Rocks in Gunnison, and the Mississippi Mountain in Durango, all potentially included in this bill. And the thing is, once public lands are sold, they are gone. That's usually how this has worked historically. 70 to 90% of Westerners, often even MAGA, according to polls, are opposed to this concept of selling off public lands. We have a really proud Western culture here. We love to get outside. We love to get out in the mountains. And we love access to those amenities. It's part of why we choose to live here. There's also a provision stuck in this bill, which I would encourage everyone to look at, that says, well, these lands can only be used for housing or related infrastructure. That's only for 10 years. There's a stop on that, at which point then they would be much more flexible for other use. So once again, keep looking at this very comprehensive, long piece of legislation because there are concerning things in that bill.
Yeah, okay.
In the version that went to the House, there were a proposal for public lands in the West to be sold. It didn't include Colorado. That had to get pulled before it passed the House, but now Colorado has been added back in with Colorado. And you can look to our own Perry Penley, David Bernhardt, people who've been involved with the administration for coming up with the plan and pushing in Project 2025, pushing selling public lands. Adam's right, even MAGA supporters do not approve of this. There was a big poll like 2 months ago. People in the West want to keep the lands public. And let's hope this makes it through.
All right, Eric.
This has certainly become a hot issue up in Grand County, where we spend most of our time, as it is throughout the state, but particularly the mountain communities and where this public land largely exists. I'm just left thinking, this description of the big, beautiful bill, big, no one can argue with the big part of it. Beautiful, when we're starting to attack or jeopardize the beauty of this state and the beauty of this country, I think beautiful might be in some dispute.
There's so many red flags being raised around this issue. We've already hit a lot of them. There was a recent report from Headwaters Economics that found that less than 2% of public lands in the West, near towns with increased housing demand, are even suitable for housing. And that 2% is even further complicated because of wildfire risks. The second is the way that it was introduced. Senator John Hickenlooper, who sits on the National Resources Committee, told CPR that he was completely blindsided by this bill because none of the Democrats that are on that committee were given advance notice. They didn't get to look at this bill. They had no input on it, even though their states are on the list of places where these public lands are going to be sold from. Financials are also a big one. We have no idea the kind of negative impact that this would have on the outdoor recreation industry, which generated $1.2 trillion in economic output in 2023, supported 5 million jobs. And lastly, Adam hit on this, is the finality of it all. Once public lands are sold, there's no do-overs. They're gone, and that's huge.
And the ranching community in Colorado, that will really hurt. You can't have big development near cattle ranches, All right. You can watch our full episode of Colorado Inside Out at pbs12.org, on the PBS Passport app, or on our YouTube channel. And you can also listen to our extended conversations on our podcasts, which show up on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And I'm already working with this week's group of insiders for our episode that will premiere this Friday at 8 here on PBS 12. So join us for that conversation as well.
As part of our Humanize Women in the Workforce series, we introduce you to Denise Soler Cox, an award-winning filmmaker, keynote speaker, and culture transformer. After being a stay-at-home parent, Denise went on to become an activist, filmmaker, top 100 podcaster, and sought-after international speaker. She uses storytelling to reshape how we talk about culture, identity, and belonging. Here's more from Denise about her personal journey.
I'm Denise Soler Cox. I'm from New York. I was going to say New York City, but I'm from New York. In 1996, at a bar with a bunch of friends in Miami, we were just hanging out like any other night. The conversation went to what it feels like to live in the in-between. There's a saying in Spanish, ni de aquí, ni de allá, and it means not from here and not from there. And many people that are first gen, born here and have parents who are immigrants, feel a tension in their identities, like they're not enough, like in my case, not Puerto Rican enough, or didn't feel Puerto Rican enough. And I also didn't feel American enough. And that was also a feeling I never discussed. We started talking about it and mostly started joking about it, but then a friend of mine leaned over and said, but have any of you ever felt like you just weren't like Latino enough? And that sparked a conversation I'd never been in before in my life. It felt so precious to me to be able to discuss this cultural not enoughness, because I immediately went from feeling very alone to realizing I have this in common with my friends, and we're all first gen, so I must have this in common with every single other first gen, and all of a sudden I feel like I'm a part of something, and other people need to know this feeling, and so I'm gonna make a movie about it. However, it took me 17 years between that night at the bar and the New Year's Day where I decided I'm good enough to make a movie about this. What I believed during those 17 years was I couldn't possibly be good enough to do great things, even though I felt like I was here to do something great. And then the day that I decided that I would do it no matter what, even if it took the rest of my life, I made a conscious decision. I'm here to make something great, and this is the great thing I'm gonna do. The film is about that feeling that I had that night with my friends. This particular story is not a political story. It's not an immigrant story. It's an identity story about what it's like to feel pulled on the inside, but visibly look completely normal and like you don't struggle on the outside. And something that's invisible, that gets discussed very little, but that deeply, deeply challenges people in their personal relationships and at work. Not speaking Spanish fluently is a huge hot button for the community. We use it as a barometer. I don't, but it is used as a barometer to gauge someone's Latinidad, or just how Latino are you. This is a story that persists in our community, and it cannot be stressed enough how not okay it is to be related to that way by our own community. And I had no idea that the story about the specific first-gen Latino growing up in the United States would resonate with people all over the world, trying to capture that feeling of not belonging to your own culture. We put the trailer on Facebook, and in 24 hours, it had gone viral. People from all over everywhere were reaching out saying, how can I see this movie? Can you come to my company and speak? And I've been now on over 400 stages. So after engagement after engagement after engagement, I started realizing this piece of media is making people feel something, and what they reflect back to me is giving me incredible insight into the conversation called, where do I belong? And so I've become a belonging expert very much accidentally. I have a 17-year-old and a 15-year-old. My greatest hope is that I've demonstrated to them that whatever dream they have and however far away it might seem, that it's so worthwhile spending whatever time you need to take to make sure that it happens in the world, because there are no accidents. I try to be as transparent as possible with them when it comes to the things that I continue to be challenged with, that it's possible to have, to be a great mom, but also to be a great whatever it is they decide to be, and that it isn't an either or, it's not binary. My husband is an actor, and he is a writer of screenplays, and he has absolutely put his dreams aside for me. It required a lot of him to make that possible, from everything from the rides, driving the kids to and from school, to parties, to play dates, making sure that they're fed, going shopping, and also, doing the work that he does, but not being able to really fully do the work that he wants to do. And so it makes me emotional, because I look forward to when he can fully embrace that and have the experience of living out what he really wants to do. We all deserve to feel that way. In Latina, the gender roles are polarized, or I would say specific. It's not really acceptable in my culture for there to be this mismatch. Audience members over the last several years have asked, what does my husband think of this, right? Or a lot of women have said, I could never do what I really want to do because I don't have a husband like yours. First, whenever I tell people I'm a filmmaker, let's say they're out, they have no idea who I am. Oh, that's nice, right? And then they see the film and they're like, wow, that was really good. I wasn't expecting that, right? And so I would say that's a general public feedback, right, of me. I'm a woman, I'm Latina. And if they know that, they're even more impressed. And so the question becomes, why, right? Secondly, we tried to sell the film to a very well-known outlet that produces very well-known documentaries. And the offer that was given was so abysmal that I declined. And of course I thought, wow, I'm Latina, I'm a woman, I'm telling a story that has so much nuance that people can't really see the value. If that isn't the plight of women in business, I don't know what is. Then we pitched a second film, same outlet, declined. I wondered, as I was pitching the film in a ginormous conference room in New York City, a very well-known address, how many men sat there pitching something similar and who would have been taken a little bit more seriously than me. But when it comes to the story of a woman in business, the narrative of, I'm not going to follow these rules. I get to figure out my own way, and I get to believe that my way will make it through the noise. These restrictions or challenges are so baked into my day-to-day. I surprise people with what I've created, right? If anything, I would say I'm more determined than resentful, because I also get, if anything, how many women need to see successful women, and how many women of color need to see successful women of color, and how many storytellers need to see their stories be told.
Through Denise's recent film, Enye, and her upcoming book, What Will They Say?, she teaches organizations how to scale belonging, and she empowers people to break free from their limiting beliefs. To learn more about Denise and her work, go to her website, denisesolercox.com. And to view all of our Humanize Women in the Workforce series, you can go to our YouTube channel or to our website at pbs12.org. This week's Heart of the West takes us into a world where ancient tradition meets modern artistry. Bala is an Indian immigrant and artist of nearly 25 years who brings henna-inspired designs to life. Her textured acrylic paintings and ceramics are rich with culture, color, and the stories she's carried across continents.
So this is the same style as doing henna body art, and I'm doing this process called slip trailing, where I am piping liquid clay on clay to get textured lines. Hi, I'm Bala. I am a full-time professional artist. I came to the US as an immigrant from Chennai, India, where I grew up, to pursue a PhD at Kansas State University. It confuses a lot of people because you don't hear a lot of artists who have a PhD. My background is wildlife diseases. Biology was the goal. Any other middle class upbringing in an Indian household, you grow up with this idea of wanting to be a doctor, an engineer, or something where you establish a career, right? Art is not seen as one of those. And actually, I didn't even know I could do art till I started painting. I love piping paint. The reason I started doing them is I grew up with this art that's called kolam in South India. Millions of Tamil women do it every day around the world. So my thought was wanting to do that on a canvas that I could hang by the entryway. And that's kind of how I fell into the art world. It felt like, oh, I could do more of this, taking a break from biology for a bit. It just took a life of its own. This is where my creativity is. It's not in cakes. And it's been 13 years. It's all discovery along the way. Honestly, like everything you see, I don't have a vision in my head when I paint, right? It's not about the steadiness of my hands. It's about how I can control my breathing. It's like I start with a blank canvas, and where it takes me, it's unknown. So when I finish a painting, it's as new to me as it is to you seeing it for the first time. My main technique is grounded in how I can bring in my culture. So you see one of my paintings, it could be just henna, or if you know more about Indian stuff, it's kolam, or when you see a portrait, it's like, oh, it's a dancer or it's a bride. And so there are all these different points of connection that leads back to celebrating a culture. When I was back in academia, it's like, oh, you do lab work, you do field work, you do statistics, there's so many different things you do. But once you start doing art, there's the business side of art and then there's the creative side. But there's also this, you have to constantly keep evolving and do more. The masks in particular, I started doing them about the same time I started painting portraits, and it's nice because there's two different mediums, but they inform one another in how I create. Portrait series is a mixed media series. That's a new thing that I just started like a year and a half ago. And it is my way of showing the power of everyday women. In a sense, I never added labels to my identity in the past, but now it feels like I do have to, say, hey, I'm an Indian immigrant woman doing this because it brings visibility, not just to me, but to also other underrepresented artists in the community, whether it's women artists or BIPOC artists, right? It's adding that extra voice to what I do. We can be anything we want. I'm not labeled or boxed in by like, oh, I used to be in academia, I was a scientist, or I am just an artist, right? We are all so much more, and it's nice to be able to be part of that. It's inspiring, especially for kids, that they don't have to grow up with this idea of like, oh, I need to be a doctor or an engineer or any of that they can do whatever they want. One of the reasons I paint mandalas and not mountains is wanting to highlight my culture and doing what I know, of course, but also I want kids to grow up with more than what their parents grew up with, what their grandparents had as art in their homes, right? We live in a global world, in a global culture, and I want kids to experience that, and I see my art as a means for doing so. It's my identity. It's everything that I bring to the table of who I am. It's not just my art, it's not just my language, it's not just how I dress, right? It just all comes in together. Art is the easiest way I can express it.
Congrats to Bala on being part of the Go West Art Show at the Dairy Art Center in Boulder. It'll be going on now through June 29th. And to find out more about this Colorado artist, you can go to artbybala.com or find her on Instagram at artbybala. Recently, the Colorado Department of Behavioral Health hosted a statewide summit at CU Anschutz Medical Campus in Aurora. It brought together experts, advocates, and young people to tackle one of the most pressing issues facing our state: teen mental health. As part of our Decode Colorado series, we sat down with some of the teens who spoke on the panel at the summit. They shared their personal stories, hoping to break down mental health stigmas, and they offer advice to both schools and parents.
My personal experience kind of started when I was around 10 years old. My youngest sister was diagnosed with something called CRPS, Complex Regional Pain Syndrome, actually at the Children's Hospital of Aurora campus. And it's a nerve condition, and there's no current cure for it. It's very painful. And she was very young when she was diagnosed. And I remember I was probably around 10 when we started managing with pain clinics and outpatient therapies and all of that, and seeing a family member go through something like that and you can't fix it and you can't aid to it at 10 years old, and you have to go to school and put on a brave face and you have to take care of the other sister, it's heavy.
The next question is regarding current. What do you think are the most common behavioral and mental health challenges youth are facing today? And how can we break the stigma around talking about mental health? Who would like to begin?
Okay, so to tackle the first part of that question, asking about some of the struggles that our youth are facing, I think similar to our online environment, the ways that our communities have adapted post-COVID, a lot of these youth are growing up heavily around the internet. They're growing up using online tools in ways that in a lot of things can help benefit their growth and mindset learning, but on the opposing side of that pendulum can also be really harmful and can create issues like loneliness and depression. And for the second part of that question on how to tackle that, how to destigmatize it, I think just continuing the communication behind it, of opening that door to conversation and really just reassuring that even though these times are very different than how most of our parents and family members grew up, change doesn't always have to be a bad thing, and we have to be able to move through that change with these kiddos.
I'm West African, so my parents, they put a lot of stress on me to excel academically, but with that, they didn't really address my mental health concerns, because while I was doing really well in school, my behavior, I was really stressed. I had a lot of anxiety, and I wasn't speaking to people at all. I was completely nonverbal, and it wasn't as much of a concern to them because I was doing well in school. I think growing up, I had different behavioral health needs, because I think that mental health, especially for youth, it's so different compared to back then, because I think that youth, we're aware of it, but we don't always open those conversations, like Monica was saying. So I think that first, we really need to have more targeted behavioral health interventions, especially for youth that come from underserved identities. I think our current interventions, it's very centered around white, straight male youth, and I think we need to expand that to the BIPOC youth, the queer youth, the youth from rural identities, from rural communities, because when we do not address them, then we lack an important part of the mental health conversation. And in order to make our interventions truly effective, we have to engage everybody, especially those populations that have not traditionally been engaged in mental health interventions.
Wonderful, thank you.
I just think that mental health now, more than ever, is more important. That as a member of East High School, we unfortunately saw the effects of mental health with gun violence and multiple school shootings. The realization that it was almost a shell shock experience, that actually one of the kids who committed these acts of violence was in my class. I talked with him, and I just didn't realize you don't know what someone's going through at all times. And seeing that firsthand had me almost more aware and hyper aware that as I was walking around, you just see people with their heads down, quiet, not talking, and recognizing that you really do not know what someone's going through until you're able to ask and get up to know them on that deeper level. And just experiencing that and realizing that isolation some people feel has me wanting to go out and help others not feel that way.
Darius, I'm going to have you kick this question off because it's regarding teens and youth. What do you wish adults understood better about youth mental health?
I think something I wish more adults understood is sometimes you don't exactly have the words to describe what you're going through, but that doesn't mean your issues aren't there and underlying that. Sometimes you're often asked how you're feeling and how you're doing, and you just say good because you don't have the words to describe truly what you're going through. But being there and listening more to us youth and understanding that we are all going through something, and sometimes just get through it is not the right answer, is something I wish more adults understood.
And I remember at that point I was probably 11, and I remember reaching out to my mom and I said, "Mom, I'm not okay." I'd never said that to anyone in my life. And I said, "Mom, I'm not okay." And my mom's a wonderful person. She's a great mom. And she reached out to Children's Hospital and connected me with a therapist. And since 11 years old, I have seen several talk therapists, and it has gotten me to where I am today. It's gotten me into the school that I attend. It's gotten me into the career that I want to pursue. It's saved my life, but it's also saved other people's lives because I'm still here.
So it was my older sister, actually. We are super close, and she's about 7 years older than me. And I really appreciate for her because she was kind of the gap between generations for me and my parents. So she definitely filled in a lot of blurred lines. And by having that resource, I was able to involve teachers because my teachers, they reacted very well to my parents. So they were able to have more of a behavioral health plan for me that didn't really impact my schooling. So it was small steps at a time, but it was that continuous form of engagement that really helped.
I think after seeing the events at my school, I did struggle a bit, that I felt isolated and alone, but knowing my peers and my friends and my mentors I could talk to about what I was going through and realizing I'm not alone in this life, and I have support from everyone around me, and having used that to help push myself forward has definitely been something.
It doesn't always pan out in that beautiful, happy ending way for a lot of people, but for me, I'm lucky to be sitting here and advocating for a lot of kids, and I'm really glad that I had the support system in my life that allowed me to now support other people through their struggles.
There is so much stigma around mental health because I think that when you talk about mental health, then you're automatically crazy. You automatically have issues. I think that's like probably one of the biggest issues, because I think that teens, we're aware of mental health. Like, we know that it's there, but we don't fully know how to address it, especially in a way that feels safe for us. So I think that trying to navigate that is really difficult, but I think at the front line, we need to at least open that conversation.
Yes, I think there's a stigma around mental health because those who are seen getting treatment or getting help are sometimes often perceived as soft or not being able to take care of themselves, and helping break down that stigma and realizing that sometimes it's okay to not be okay, and how can you grow and learn and use your resources and community to help yourself get better, because once you're better, you're also able to then help other people, like we're doing with the Youth Council on Mental Health. I don't think suicide is talked about nearly enough as it needs to be, especially as we make that transition from high school to college. That it's a huge leap, and you often feel alone. That I've seen many kids, once they're in college, take their lives actually, and that rate is alarming almost to see how many are doing that, and that bringing up the stigma of signs of what to look out for is something that I think needs to be spread more throughout schools and throughout more messaging.
I think a lot of it has to do with our remote world. Post-COVID, a lot of learning, a lot of development has been shifted to online, and it's become very adaptable in a lot of ways in the workforce. That's been a really good thing. It makes a lot of resources more accessible to us, and in some ways that counts for mental health resources of online accessibility for that, but in other ways it can result in anxiety and loneliness and depression or bullying on social media. And I think it's a harder thing to confront when it's not face-to-face, when that interaction or when those emotions or struggles are developing from something that you can't actually confront in person, it's online.
Yeah, I think there's an increase more now than ever in pressure to succeed socially, especially with the rise of social media, where you're seeing where everyone's at, how often they're going out, where they're going out to, and who they're hanging out with. That just seeing that makes you kind of feel left out and like you need to be a part of it, and that social pressure just like is automatically applied just because of the access and how accessible social media is for us.
How do you think schools can do better supporting students' mental health?
Continuing to promote the resources schools have, and continue to show and the mental health professionals who are working with inside the school to continue to walk around showing they're there to support has made a huge difference. That especially after seeing the events at my high school, seeing how those mental health professionals started showing up more and being seen and making sure they're known as a resource around their communities is something I think schools could do better at.
I think a big misconception is that if we're sad, it's only temporary. And sometimes that is the case, and other times it's a longer storm with a longer, evacuation period that we need to wait out, and that's okay, but it also means we can't just sit there and wait for it to stop. We got to start doing stuff to help us get through it. And I think a lot of youth, from a parent's perspective, sometimes it can seem over-dramatized. But for your youth member, a lot of times when they're struggling, they can't see that light at the end of the tunnel. Their brain doesn't know. In 5 years, I'll look back and think of that as growth. I will learn from this. I will mature from this. But in the moment, if your kid is being bullied at school, they think that their world is falling on top of them. And I think a big misconception that a lot of adults have is that it'll pass. It'll get better tomorrow, or things like that. And I think sometimes that is the case, other times it's not, and we have to continue asking those questions to figure out which side we're working with.
My advice to parents would be to continue to be there and continue to ask those questions and not take good or fine for an answer, but also continue to be there and support and show up for them. That you don't realize how important it is when you show up for your kid. It makes them feel seen and supported.
Even if they tell you not to come?
Yes, always show up. Continue to check in and also just notice what they're doing. That when habits change, sometimes something's not right. So to continue to listen to what their kids are saying, hear what they're doing, and just be there and be supportive, show that you're always there to help and support them, is something that's so crucial that I think a lot of people don't realize yet.
I think first and foremost, you have to open the conversation up, even if it's uncomfortable, because it will be uncomfortable. But I think what teens really need is someone to at least open the conversation. Because when a teen says, oh, I'm fine, I'm okay, it doesn't always mean that they're fine and they're okay. So have that continuous check-in with them. It's so important for them to really open up, because they're not going to open up on the first conversation. It may not be the 10th or the 20th, but it may be like the 21st conversation. So I think it's really important, because even on the panel, we were talking about being brave and being vulnerable with your teens.
I think for parents, I think mutual vulnerability helps a lot. Whether that's mom and dad or guardian or whatever that relationship looks like. If the adult figure in their life shares vulnerability with them, a lot of times it is reciprocated down the road. It might not be immediate, and it's kind of a learning process that adults in day-to-day life aren't always 100% okay. And that's something that kids might not know. They might not see that side to us. Adults today go through real struggles, and change is a big thing in life, and that's okay. Then I think they'll be more comfortable with it when it hits them or when they have to go through something difficult. But I would just say reach out to the people that you love and care about, and even if it's been a while, just check in. And those little check-ins, those little, hey, how are you really, it can make a huge difference in the lives of many youth.
All the youth, I would like you all to respond to this. What do you need from adults?
I think that one thing I wish that adults understood about mental health is that, like, mental health, it's not just like about being sad or being depressed. Like, we need to expand our understanding of it. It can also be like in feelings of like anger and lashing out. Like, I think that we need to like open our understanding of mental health, because I think that when I was growing up, I had good grades in school, so clearly I didn't have any mental health concerns, but that was not the case at all. So I think that when adults, they learn more and want to educate themselves, then they will. And I think that what youth really need is like a supportive adult that like wants to open that space for them.
Yeah, in agreement and kind of in addition to with what Stacy just said, it obviously depends on the age of youth that we're looking at. I nanny in college, and I can tell you right now that the development of a 20-year-old, when their parents check in and say, hey, how is college going, versus asking a 4-year-old, hey, how was kindergarten today? They're gonna have a different response, right? And so, depending on what age those youth members are, can kind of deter the questions that we're asking to those environments, whether it's, hey, I saw this in the news, is everything okay at school? Or, how was your day? And say 4-year-old says, it was good. Then parent asks, what was the best part? What was your rose and thorn of that day? Not just ending it on, oh, I'm fine. Oh, my day was good. Kind of taking those next steps into asking the harder questions, or even just sharing your own experiences of, yeah, my day was good too, but I had a conflict. I had a hard conversation with somebody at work, or opening that door for them helps them reach out to you.
I said have resilience. I think that especially with what's going on right now, it feels very weak. I feel like we don't really have as much community because there's so much trying to break that down. But I think that resilience is so important, because at the end of the day, I think we're all fighting for the same mission. We're all trying to accomplish the same goal. And I think that we're all stronger together. And that's what we really need to push for. You can't make decisions about youth without them. And this goes for anyone working with youth. This goes for the policymakers, the influencers, the parents. Like, if you are interacting with youth, you need to involve them. Because I think a big issue is that youth aren't involved and our voices are constantly being taken from us. But I think that when you open that conversation and allow for youth to have their own agency in their voice, it really does change the conversation about mental health.
If you or a loved one are facing a mental health challenge, there are resources available to help. We'd like to remind teens, parents, and everyone in our community here in Colorado what some of those resources are. The 988 Colorado Mental Health Line is available for free, immediate human support 24/7. You can call, text, or live chat with 988 today, and they're ready to listen. You can also visit imattercolorado.org. Colorado youth can receive up to 6 free therapy sessions through iMatter with English and Spanish language services available. Visit imattercolorado.org to learn more. We leave you tonight with Sounds on 29th and a bold voice in Denver's local punk music scene. That is femcore band Cheap Perfume. Known for their feminist and politically charged lyrics, Cheap Perfume brings big drums, heavy bass, and sonic blasts of guitar chords. Cheap Perfume performed live on stage at the Bluebird Theater recently, and we also got the chance to chat more with them during a one-on-one interview. Thanks for watching Studio 12. Be sure to follow us on social media and on YouTube. And then we'll see you next Tuesday night at 8. Until then, have a great week. I'm Bazi Kanani.
Welcome, Cheap Perfume. How do you all maintain your energy during a show? What place do you go to for that?
For me, I think it's a lot of like looking at the audience, especially when there's like a lot of young folks down there. I've always believed that music is like such an exchange of energy, and so it's definitely coming a lot from there. I think that there's like a rage that is channeled for sure, and then it's also just like fear. Like I'm just scared.
Mine is kind of the opposite. 'Cause when I do karaoke, my trick is I just kind of like close my eyes and just pretend no one's watching me kind of thing, and that's kind of what I do on stage. I just kind of try to zone out. I look at Steph and Willow and Dave because like they're my comfort zones, but then every time I look in the crowd, I'm like, oh, those people are watching. So I also kind of just run around constantly, but more in an insulated, my own little zone kind of thing.
See, I love that because seeing you all perform, nervousness or fear would be the last thing that anybody would project onto y'all. You all have such an ease and such a power. And even the folks that I was like with when they were watching your performance, is like power is what they felt from your performance. So I think that says like something incredible. Like, can you all talk to me a bit about how you built your alchemical process that allowed you to take like nervousness and rage and all these things and change it into something that ends up like being a powerful experience for people who listen to your music and see you live?
I mean, I think like most of that comes from Stephanie. Having been in bands with like Willow, we're both kind of timid performers, and Stephanie has never been that. And I think she definitely elevates things for me, and she's the one who really kind of like bridges from the stage to the audience, you know, and kind of gets everybody like in the middle there.
I think that like this has been 10 years in the making of like getting this like confidence together though, and having to build that trust too with like people that like if things go wrong or anything like that, that you can kind of like, you know, bounce off of each other, and it's so fun because it's punk rock. But I think it's a lot of trust, and then, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that is time and just like knowing each other and feeling comfortable playing the songs, but also like knowing if something goes wrong, we kind of are now at a mindset where we can improvise rather than just kind of everyone shuts down, you know? So I think way more comfortable the last like 3 or 4 years in the band, as far as just being like, if you mess up, it's okay. We're gonna keep going and everyone's gonna get it done.